Oh, welcome to the final session of the day. I'm very, very excited for this one because we are going to be talking going global, how to engage a worldwide audience. With millions of people watching and connecting with digital content every single day within this region, how can you expand your presence beyond the current borders and engage that global audience? What territories should brands and media companies be focused on? And how can they tailor their content and programming strategies for international success? We're going to do a panel session on this now, so I would like you to welcome up to the stage. We have got Joe, who is the MD at TBWA and RAAD, also Nora, she's the GM at Keko Agency, and Jean, who is the Creative Director and DOP at MarComLux Imagery Lab. Hi guys, how are you doing? Let's give them all a nice big round of applause. Fantastic, and my name is Emma and I will be your moderator for this session. How are we doing this afternoon, folks? Pick up a microphone there, Nora, there you go.
Great.
You're good? Happy? Happy? Enjoying?
Yeah, I made it.
You made it! PCR dramas, was it? As it is. So first of all, we'll do this as a little bit of a round robin. We'll go down the line with the questions. So first up, before a brand even starts to create their content, what are the things they should be taking into consideration? Joe, let's start with you for this one.
I think it's, let me start with saying, like, when you go on a trip, the first thing that you need to do is you take the map, and through that map you go through the journey. And then, you know, throughout, if you don't have that map or if you don't have a journey, you would absolutely look on or have some interesting sites. But eventually, you know, your time is being wasted. So before you actually start doing anything, the first thing is you need to have really a clear roadmap so that really you don't focus on spontaneous content, but at the same time less valuable content. And more you will lose people's interest in that. And if I would like to summarize also to engage with the customers or with the viewers, there are three things that you need to take into consideration. The first thing is set really the objective and the goals, what you want to do, why you are doing what you're doing, and what's the purpose of what you're doing. The second thing is know your target audience, engage with them, know how they spend their time, their money, and what you really want from them to do, and also focus on the full journey from driving awareness all the way to consideration, purchase, and repeat purchase as well. And the last thing is focus on seeing and analyzing the competition, not only what they're doing, but also what they are not doing, so that you can really disrupt the norm and what's out there in the market, and make sure that you stand out versus them.
Okay, Nora, what do you think?
I think it summarizes really what you need to do. So two things that are really important and key, perhaps that Joe already said, it's the audience. You have to really know who you're talking to and where you're communicating, what's the medium, on which platform. And clearly, what's your goal? What do you want out of the communication? Is it, do you want to sell something, or do you want just people to know your brand, to know about you, about a certain aspect of your brand, or a new aspect of your brand, etc. So it's a very broad question, but I think it was very well summarized. It's also important to understand the time of the communication, not as in during the day, but the time and the circumstance. So if you're launching or if you're communicating in a certain platform, it's important to understand the audience location, the time, the circumstances, socio-economical background as well. So you're not completely out of context.
And Jean, what do you think brands need to look at before they even start their content creation?
Well, good afternoon first. Well, the guys said it well, but what I would add, definitely you start identifying your audiences, the location, wherever the story or the content is going to be aired on, but you need a story first. your story, it has to be strong, it has to be in line with your client or brand strategy, how it reaches your clients, consumers, and this is where it starts, and then you make sure you tap in or you tick all the boxes where key messages of the brand, the identity, and all that. And then adding up to all what the guys said already.
And do all brands need to focus on going out of their locality? Do they all need to look at worldwide content, or should they be focusing on where they are?
I would say today more than ever, localized content is very important. Definitely global brand content or campaigns are essentials, are very important, but they need to be supported by localized adaptation. And when saying adaptation, is not just the language, but the full thing. And make sure that persona from global brand campaign is adapted locally and seen in a localized way.
Nora, what do you think? And I'm going to just expand on that question as well. And obviously, with territories like this region and various other places, obviously there's certain cultural sensitivities that brands need to be aware of. So how do they alter those to attract a global audience? And should they, or should they just be sticking to what they do best?
The first question is that can they cater to a global audience?
Yes, so should certain brands, obviously, where they're very, very localized, then do they need to look at expanding their territories? And if they're doing that, how do they alter their brand content to cater for a global audience as opposed to a local one?
So basically there's a lot of things that come into play to cater to a global audience. I worked on a project a few years back for Colgate, and we wanted to launch, not necessarily launch the brand, it's very well known and famous, but we wanted to penetrate the market aggressively. And we failed miserably because the Saudis are used to Crest, and they like the taste of Crest, and they weren't, accepting. Although Colgate is very famous, so it's not necessarily entering or advertising a new brand. But I think it's very important to do the right research and understand the local market itself and understand what are the sensitivities. I just used that example, but there's a lot of different brands that could fail or win market share in a specific market for so many reasons. Another example as well, I worked in 2014 on Coca-Cola, and we did the FIFA World Cup trophy tour in this part of the world in a few countries. And some countries, and we used the same, more or less the same communication, catered to the market itself, with the lingo of the market itself, with the right language, etc. But the event was successful in a few locations, it was much better in a few locations than others, and it's simply because some of the markets grew up with football and they have it embedded in their, in their brains and lifestyle, and so it's a very broad question. The latest example, we at Keko we worked on a campaign for Porsche. And we wanted to launch the Taycan Cross Turismo, which is a fully electric car. I wanted to show the versatility of the car, so why not launch it in minus 30 degrees and plus 30 degrees. So we actually replicated an existing track that is in Finland. We replicated it here in Abu Dhabi, in Liwa. We could have done like a few corners here and there and faked the entire film, but we actually replicated the full track and showed the versatility of the car. Obviously, I mean, this is one of the tactics to go global by speaking a global universal language, universal insights, without a specific, sensitivity towards a certain culture or race, etc. So I feel like there's different tactics. It's not one rule doesn't fit all. I would say.
No, absolutely. And Joe, what are your thoughts on that? Do brands need to alter their message to penetrate different audiences, and is it always possible?
See, just to also say something on what the guys were mentioning, yes, it is important to have a strong base in your market. And there are a lot of universal insights that you can capture and really bank on those. But there are some cultural nuances, between one country and another, and between one region and the other. And as long as you are faithful to the purpose and you're faithful to the story that you're saying and whatever is your idea, but shape it in different forms depending on how the culture perceives you. Because at the end, you don't want to say something out there that, like bring any harm to the brand or to the content piece. So yes, it is important to take those nuances at the same time.
And Jean, moving on, what platforms should brands be considering, and is it difficult in choosing the right platforms, and is there a danger of brands spreading themselves too thin across all social platforms? What needs to be considered?
Well, for this part, it's very important, like spreading thin. I wouldn't advise it, especially in the industries we're specialized on, like when it comes to luxury and watchmaking. We need to identify at least one platform, and what we usually do is recommend along to the platform YouTube. YouTube, we have always to be there. We recommend it to our clients. And then when we identify the platform, depend if it's a brand campaign or content, it goes on one platform. Is we're working with a KOL, depend what platform they are strong on, the territories they are on, and what engage better with the clients and the consumer. And this is very important. So spreading thin is not advised because you go all over the place and you might not be noticed, especially when it comes to budgets and all that. But focusing on a platform and going on it full power and then supported with YouTube for the long term, especially that what we advise our clients usually.
And Nora, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I would ask a small question before. So it really depends who you want to target, because the people, actually even us, we know from ourselves, we're not really faithful to one social platform. We jump from platform to another. So if I want to reach myself or lookalikes or others people, doesn't matter, where is the target audience? Where are they spending their time? And based on this and the objective, obviously, of the communication of the content, so based on these two main points, we would then advise like to utilize a certain platform versus another. There's no one size fit all, because it really depends on the end goal and what we want. But where do these people spend their time is a key question that would be asked before advising on a certain platform, I would say.
So brands need to be investing in the data, basically, to find out where their audiences are, Joe.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And finding, the right platform that gives you the right exposure and really definitely target the right audience, that's the question. It is really important also to identify what is your objective. Is it more about, how do you prioritize your objective and what is needed? So for example, if you are more part of your objective and your creativity and design is more about, visual and in videos, you would find Instagram and TikTok as the best place to do that. If it's more about real-time updates, probably it's more about Twitter. If it's more about, a combination of different targeting, maybe it's YouTube and LinkedIn more and more. So again, it goes back to what is your objective. And how can you utilize, as a brand or a content creator, how can you utilize this platform to give you, one, the right exposure and really targeting the right audience. And I agree with Nora about, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not about also, spreading things. It's about utilizing the right platform for the right objective, along with the right creativity.
So staying on that line and with you on that, because obviously, as you guys say, there is no one size fits all. All the platforms are different. All the content is different. So how do brands tailor their content for the individual platforms? Like if they're producing something that's long form for YouTube, should they just then do cut down versions for other media, or should they completely rework it for the other platforms?
See, this is the simplest approach.
Yeah.
But is it workable? Is it optimal? Does it drive engagement? No, because again, you know, different platforms, they have different rules of engagement. They have different audiences. Today, for example, when you target audiences on TikTok, you have to have a different approach when it comes to YouTube, you know, and what resonates with me, you know, it does not mean that resonates, for example, with my daughter or with the audiences that are around. So again, stressing back on it's not one size fits all. You need to really tailor that specific content for the people. And also consumers and viewers, they really appreciate the versatility that you give, you know, across the platform. And they would recognize if that is a cut down or not, or if that piece of content is fitting that specific platform. Is it meant to be on that specific platform? Is it doable? Yes, it is doable. It's the simplest approach where you actually copy and paste and change some of the semantics here and there. But is it optimal? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves.
Nora?
I absolutely agree with this. Basically, you cannot have the same content just placed or cut or edited everywhere. It has to be. It has to cater to the audience itself and the medium itself and the platform itself. So, for example, if I'm on LinkedIn, just as an example, I would like to consume maybe more professional content, articles, be part of conversations, but I don't consume LinkedIn the same way I consume Instagram. That is a bit more visual, entertaining, maybe a bit maybe shareable, etc. So it's the same rule applies to each and every social platform, and it's very important that the content itself is really authentic and true to the medium itself.
And Jean?
Well, true, like this should be thought after before, in the pre-production process, when you put the story, the content creation, and you say what I want to communicate it, which platform we decided, it should be created differently. At the end, the cut downs can be helpful to cross-promote, but it's not gonna engage. So we need to create content for each platform, and this should be decided always before and not fall in the trap like, oh wow, we created nice content, it's beautiful, it's a full web episode. Oh, let's do a short story for Instagram or TikTok or whatever. It's not gonna engage, it's not gonna work. If we're lucky, it's going to work, but no. We have to think of it before, and this is where most of clients today fall in the trap, like let's do it, and then let's get cutouts
And I just want to sidestep for a minute, a little bit of a curveball question, if you don't mind. It's just because I was talking to someone the other day who they deal with product placement, which I've never really seen as a thing here, whereas we know in other territories it's massive. You know, you stick and I was watching some people that talk about strategies on social media, and they're saying one of the best strategies is for a brand not to be full on in your face, but to be kind of to team up with creators and be part of their content. How do you guys feel about that? Jean, I'm going to start with you, particularly as a DOP and working in that realm. What do you think about that?
Well, product placements are there. How they engage, I'm not sure, but if they are done properly, it's part of the story of the creator. Like, you cannot put, no advertisements here, they are not my clients, you cannot put a Rolls Royce in somebody who doesn't like to drive a car at all, and you say it's a nice product placement, right? It should be in the right context, it should be part of their life, what they really influence in their normal life when they go out in a restaurant or go for a school or all that. And this is where product placements are effective. Just putting an iPhone in the hand of any creator, it doesn't work like that. Putting a perfume on a table where you're doing a conference here, it doesn't work. So product placements are really nice, good, but they should be part of the person who's in the film or in the image.
Nora, is it something you'd ever use?
Yeah, of course. I mean, product placement, we usually it's a bit more common when it's in big films. but even with colors and branding, when it comes to advertising or communication or content, usually the brand likes to use their own colors. So it's always, you always have a reminder that, for example, I'm Coke versus Pepsi, or I'm brand A versus brand B. This is regarding FMCG, but when we talk about luxury and with the affluent consumers, product placement is very important. And it happens with content, wherever you find any piece of content, any film format, you find reminders of a few products, and it's a media, it's like a magazine, it's like a space that you pay for.
Joe, is it something that you use in your strategies at all?
With some clients, yes, but again, back to how authentic is that placement, how credible, and how it fits the story seamlessly, because more and more it's product in the face of the consumer, and it shows that it's an ad. People will reject it immediately, and it will be all over the place. It's again, how credible is that product placement, how it fits the whole story seamlessly. That's the most important thing. It's very simple. Authenticity is at the heart of that thing.
Go on, John.
Yeah, just to add one thing, like today, we just heard, it's very important on the industry. If you take the makeup industry and the beauty, it's crazy how you see product placements everywhere, and it's all paid and paid and paid, and it's going crazy, but it's working. Because if you stop it, you're gonna be off shelf soon. So in some industries it's working. The more you get the product placement in front of the consumer, they see it, you brainwash, it's working. Then when you go to niche products or some other FMCG products, it might be too much and might be harmful for the brand. So also this varies, like we're talking about the platforms, about from industry to another.
I mean, it's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, if we look at something like, for me, like Instagram, the incessant adverts, I'm like, oh, why am I being shown this? It's completely irrelevant. Hide, irrelevant, do you know what I mean? Or you get influencers or other people, and they're constantly ramming stuff at you all the time. And Joe, the word you use there, credibility. I think credibility is key. And as you say, people aren't stupid. They know something when something is a paid-for promotion, when someone's just being paid to promote a product, as opposed to whether they are a genuine user of that product. So it is a fine line.
Yes and no again, because I agree with what you said. I don't want to be like...
I knew you were going to be the troublemaker.
No, it's not like that. But the point is, okay, I don't know how to say it proper way, but...
You're blushing now.
The viewer today is smart, they know it's product placement, but with full due respect, they act stupid. And they still go and buy it. Even all of them, they know it's being pushed and pushed and pushed. So yeah, sometimes it's working, and the more you push it forward, it keeps working, and it's wrong. I don't say it's right or correct. So the viewers today, they know, and especially when we hit Generation Z and all those generations, they don't care. They just want to see it, they want to be associated, and we know there is no loyalty. So they want to try it, and tomorrow there's something else on board, they will jump on it and keep jumping. And this is how it's working. And some other industries, you don't even have to place it. And it's being organically placed, and it's very hard to see it, and it's working as well. And sometimes you come and you put the product, you put a can of Coke here, and oh, why it's here, right? So, from scenario to another, from an industry to another. But the consumers are smart and acting stupid at the same time.
Controversial statements. So when we're planning strategies to go from local to global, how do brands go about that, and how should they be planning those strategies, Nora?
So there's a lot of things to consider if you're willing to go global, and I think we touched upon a few things with the earlier questions. And I think it's super important to set the actual goal. What's the objective of going global? Can I actually cater to the global exposure? if I'm trying to sell something abroad, do I actually have the entire network? Can I actually ship something overseas or whatever it is? So what's the objective is really important and to set and define. And the second thing is, am I a trusted brand or not? So if I have already established trust within my own market, then it's a bit easier to re-establish a success somewhere else. But if in a certain market I'm not quite there yet, then it becomes a bit more challenging, and the brand would be spread a little bit too thin, I would say. So again, it's a super broad question, very difficult to answer, but it's quite important to understand the why we're doing this, understand the market itself, do the right research, understand maybe there are local players that you never heard of or you don't really know in a different market. So setting the scene is quite important, and understanding the audience in a different market and their behavior is important. So the data and the analysis and the research, there's a lot of work to be done before just moving global, I would say.
And Joe, what do you see as the best strategies?
It should start from the beginning, you know, from when, if you want to talk like agency languages, like from the moment that brief lands to you, what are the markets that you're catering outside of your base market or out of your local market? We've seen a lot of examples of brands going from the region outside globally or the other way around, and I think from the beginning we need to really look into what are those cultural insights and nuances between one country and the other. You know, even between the UAE and Saudi, like it's just within the same region, but it's one country and the other. There are a lot of similarities, but at the same time, you know, there are a lot of things that you need to be careful while communicating. And we were just discussing, me and Nora, like even between KSA and Egypt even, you know, the sense of humor is different. So from the get-go, from the beginning, you know, we need to really, when we plan our campaign, our strategy, we need to take into consideration first, what markets are we going in, do full assessment of that market, analyze what are the do's and don'ts. You know, there are some culture, religion, other stuff that really, political nuances that, you know, that you can't really speak about them loud, depending on the region and the country, and then you plan accordingly. But constantly, you know, research trends, insight should be a continuous loop. There's something that also we don't have in this part of the world. You know, it's like a business affair department where you actually go and analyze, in some cases when you do a creative product, scene by scene, image by image, how the people will take that in this part of the world. What are the repercussions? What are the pros and the cons? Testing, and also thanks for all the social media platforms. There are a lot of testing that is going on. You know, let's utilize them. Let's see what works and what does not. Not even between one country and the other. It could be within the same country as well. So it's not an afterthought. It should start from the beginning, from the ideation.
Jean, what are the best strategies that you like to use?
Okay, here are we talking only about local brand or
wanting to go global? So, like, I think that, you know, and also the question as well: brands that want to go global, do they need to re-look at their brand and rebrand themselves for a global audience?
No, I wouldn't say that. Just if you can connect it to the global audience or global markets and stuff. Like, we're working on a brand today that's rooted from the region, but they created it in New York. And the story is from here to New York, from New York to the world. And again, we go back to the story, how we put it together, because the product today, you have product that can work from Japan to Rio de Janeiro, but it's not an issue here. If your product is great, people love it, just create a nice story around it, visualize it in a nice way, have the right retail platform, whether it's online or physical or traditional, and then you go. And then when you go with your campaign, just again adapt it and make sure it's in line with what you want to communicate and reach to the right audience. And to have a brand from the region opening a flagship in New York and make their base in New York, it helps them to dominate the American market, let's say, and then work with celebrities over there and have the dominance, like having like 50, 60 celebrities working for, going on all the red carpet and the Oscars, Grammys and all that, and then you come back to the region and you communicate on that, and they see you how you're doing great abroad and you're doing great here. It gives you another push and great brand association. So I would say that would be great. Also today, like we're living on our iPhones or on our phones, right? And if you are a local brand, let's say, coming from the Middle East, you know, you can have a brand to the world because a lot of people, they share also the same culture, whether they are in Asia or in the US, and we share the same daily life almost. If we take gaming, let's say, gaming is connecting people 24 hours around the world, right? And if you're communicating your brand through gaming and you are just doing a hoodie, let's say, for people who are in esports and stuff, you're connected to all those people. It doesn't matter if you are in Dubai or in Japan or in Europe or in Africa or in Latin America. This is how you can build a brand and develop it. And today, if you are in business of hype, it's very easy to be anywhere and create a brand.
And on next to one of my favourite topics, onboarding influencers and high profile rolling here. Because, you know, on a local level, I see this fail so often here because brands do not do their research into the people they're approaching. They don't look at their ROIs, their analytics, or whatever. Big brands here do it very, very well. If I take the recent Abu Dhabi tourism ad campaign with John Cena, which was fantastic. John, as we know, he loves Abu Dhabi. He was here a few years ago and he's seen how the city, how the Emirates has expanded, and they've done a phenomenal campaign with him, which is brilliant. So what should brands be looking for when they approach influencers and people in the public eye to be workforce so that it doesn't go terribly, terribly wrong? Joe?
I think you've said it, you know, first, a lot of research before involving any influencer. Two, set common objectives. What do you need? And the third and the most important thing is that the influencer need to believe what you stand for, the values of the brand. And because at the end, he's not just an influencer, he's an ambassador for the brand. It needs to be believable, you know, and we've seen a lot of, and I agree with you in the region, you know, some influencers or even brand ambassadors hopping from one brand to the other that are competition in the same year, you know, just because it's the next best offer for him. You know, like, and when brands are really approaching influencers, one, they should really do a lot of research, the background, and agree on what is the objective. Is it more engagement? Is it, you know, does the influencer have the right target audience? Is it a sizable target audience? What's the return on investment with the collaboration with that influencer? And lastly is like, you know, do we share the same value? Because at the end, you know, you're putting your brand in the hands of someone that you call a brand ambassador. Should be a good representation of what you stand for, what you believe in. And there are a lot of good examples from the region, be it from Emirates Airlines to Etihad to Abu Dhabi to even, you know, Dubai, the Expo, and so on. These are good examples, but also there are a lot of, you know, bad examples within locally, you know, people or influencers hopping from one brand to the other.
Because they just aren't being paid to promote this product. I'm just taking the cash. That's it.
That's it.
Nora, how do you deal with having to put brands and influencers together?
So I think the way I look at it is influencers are like, you know, pages. Their role anyway is to take many brands on board. They're like magazines, if you want. So it's up to the brand to decide where they want to actually utilize. There are magazines that promote everything, right? Furniture, clothing, whatever. Cheap, high, luxury. There are magazines that are more focused. There are magazines that are about a certain industry. There are magazines that are distributed only in exclusive places, etc. And if you look at influencers the same way you look at magazines, it simplifies the way you have to choose an influencer. So what the influencer stands for is very important, because it needs, like Joe was saying, it needs to align with your brand and your objective. So if I'm trying to promote my brand to an influencer that has a very young target audience, and my brand doesn't work for a young target audience, then there's a missing link. So I think it's important to understand what's the influencer data, what's the people that or audience that they attract, what are the kind of followers they have. It's not right or wrong for them to jump from brand to brand. It's their, I would say, brand as well. It's who they are and what they stand for. For Porsche, for example, we decided to work with Johnny FPV, who's not very big influencer, but he's a world-famous FPV drone pilot. And he was a little bit under the radar when we approached him and when we did the film with him. But he has a massive following. He has 500+ million followers on his pages combined. And I think it's after we actually worked with him, he was then he collaborated with Netflix and with world-renowned actors and filmmakers, etc. So I think again, it's up to the brand and their objectives. They need to be able to pick an influencer versus another.
Can I add just one thing to that? It's also a win-win situation. As much as the brand wants proudly to associate themselves with a certain influencer, the influencer should have the same hunger back and associate themselves to the brand. And it's a two-way relationship. It's not just, I'm here for the money and that's the value I want to get out of it.
John, come on, I know you're dying to get in on this one.
No, not really.
Sorry, John.
No, it's all good. No, actually, like Nora, they're also OH, like let screens on the road, just they flip from second to another. It's a brand's mistake. It's agency's mistake, I would say, And we keep going and going over the same subject, but they're there and it's working for them. I don't know how much it's working for the brands, but thing is, you cannot tell people just work with me and don't work with the others, because it's unfair. Everybody needs to make money, everybody needs to pay the check, but the way it's worked with influencers, I would say, like the examples we've given, are they celebrities or influencers from the region? No. Most of the case studies, I would say, we're bringing people that are influential in our region. Why? Because there is a lot of work put behind this campaign or the Abu Dhabi Tourism Board. People are working on it, giving it a thought, another thought, identifying the influencer and all that. Just, it's being too much. And the way it's done, going back to the first word, story, it's not bad to take a person who did Pepsi for years and you get him to Coca-Cola. It can be stronger than any other person, but why? What's the story behind? How you can frame the competition he did before, and is she willing to drop what she did yesterday and move forward with you with a nice story, with a belief that she's connected to your brand, that she's gonna live your brand, even though she can still wear other brands and stuff, but when she wears your brand and she's connected to it, it's different. And this is where the story can start. Doing a post campaign, we all agree, it doesn't work, it never worked. Doing a campaign with an influencer today, it should be long. It should be a long-term relationship. It should start a bit underground, I would say. Then you come up with the story until you splash it and it's 100% paid or commercial and all this. So the approach we do as brands, as agencies, plays a big role, but also we are forced, especially when it comes to agencies, they're forced by brands. I want this person because the other brand did this, or my management, I want this, or this and that. So a lot of factors working on this, and the money being invested there, I would say is very good money, but is it done the right way? Is it giving the returns to the brands? I would say no.
I hear you. See, I tend to disagree. I hear you loud and clear on that. But again, you know, the harm for the brand could be short term, could be long term, but the harm on the influencer of losing authenticity and credibility is bigger. You know, hopping from one competition, like one competitive brand to the other, like the example that you said about Pepsi and Coke. Yeah, it might not harm both brands on the long term, but on the short term, it will harm the influencer, and probably, you know, he will lose authenticity and credibility out there. And that's, I think that's back to the question is what are the ingredients of onboarding influencer, and what are the prerequisites that are needed to do prior to really bring an influencer on board.
It kind of, from the influencer side of it, it comes back to the old saying, isn't it? Don't sell out. Don't be a sellout just to take the cash and promote something that you don't believe in, that goes against your ethics and morals. But we see it all the time, unfortunately, and it comes back to, you know, authenticity. People need to be real with it. I'm very aware that we're running out of time. So just quickly, for like smaller brands, not necessarily the big ones, to go global, can they do good, engaging content on a budget? Because, you know, everyone's budget conscious these days, and one of the discussions that we've had quite a lot here, like saying you can have the best equipment, cameras, microphones, studios in the world, but if your content is trash, it's not going to get, sorry to put it in layman's terms, but if it's not engaging, then what is the point?
It's not about, you know, only budget. Budget plays a role, but again, you know, back to the power of the idea, the power of the story, the power of the objective from the beginning. That's what really makes it or break it. Budget can help here and there. I can give you a lot of examples of, you know, small budget content pieces that were out there that really traveled the world. They engaged. And when I say creativity, it's not like only serious. It could have a sense of humor. It could have fun. It could be unboxing in a different way and forms and shape. It's just back again to the power of idea, the power of the story. And the platforms are there, just mediums to deliver that. And the more we invest in them, yes, the more they accelerate the story, and they will give us more reach. But at the end, you know, it goes back to what is the idea and what's the creativity and inside this, you know, design language, anything that around that creative space.
Nora?
I would like to say, actually, a big no. It doesn't work if you're on a budget, with a few exceptions. Because if you don't have a budget, it's very rare. The only job that will not be replaced ever with AI is creativity. And basically, creativity costs money. And we're learning more and more, especially with the sessions before, that there's a value to creativity. So that's why I a little bit disagree. I know we always say yes because we want to produce content and we want to be out there. But the reality is that good content requires talent, and talent costs money. That's very simple. But there's also the factor of value. I like to give an analogy of, for example, if I'm inviting people to my house for food, right, to have a meal, I have many options, right? I can buy from a restaurant existing meals, right? This is stock footage. I can buy royalty-free stock footage or rights managed, so you have a very expensive meal that you can buy or a cheap meal. Or I can cook it myself for hours and create it and, you know, give a bit more flair to it. I can also have entertainment. I can also add to it what have you. My guests will appreciate more something that I'm preparing, that I'm cooking, etc. They can also enjoy a well-prepared, meal, but it's really the value you want to give to your audience and what they want. If I have sophisticated guests and an affluent consumer, I'm sure that they won't appreciate something done in a cheap way. It has to have value, and it has to have a lot of, I wouldn't say just investment, but value, I would say, for it to reach a certain objective.
John, good content on a budget, can it be done?
Or I will cook you a nice porcini risotto that doesn't cost anything except few dirhams, 10 minutes, and you will enjoy it and you will go tell all your friends. So it's always a no budget thing, but we experience it with our client. I'm sorry, I'm not offending anybody here. When you have the idea, when you are on point, when the client understands you are giving it heart and soul in it, you understand their brand, so suddenly the budget goes from 0 to millions. It happened to us on many projects, and it's not like we bypass the agency platforms or network. Just it's easier when you are with the client, and it worked with us on local or regional campaigns that we had budget increased times 5, times 10 sometimes. The campaigns were global. So budget, yes, we need it, and also we don't need it, like the story of the risotto. Because a great idea, spot on, that could go viral and with low production cost, it really can do the job. And sometimes you just need to tap somewhere where nobody is playing. We might all have done the 50 years anniversary of UAE National Day campaign, but nobody thought maybe of what's going on the week after. And if you stand out the week after with your own campaign where everybody invested and you are alone doing it, that will give you also a lower budget campaign, and you will be standing out alone on somewhere. In place of going, let's say, all the luxury brands, all the watch brands, 10 brands, I did a UAE 50 years national campaign. Everybody was competing, bigger budget, bigger idea, better idea, everybody. So it went from $10,000 to $300,000 campaigns, let's say. But who stood out the crowd? Maybe one, maybe none. But if 2 days later you go and do something on your own, you don't need to spend all the money, you just need a nice little story, visual story, and this will do the job sometimes. So we need budgets, a lot of budgets, because we need to make nice dishes and everything. But yeah, with little budget, not no budget, little budget, sometimes it works as well.
It's tough, it's the fine line, isn't it? Thank you so much, Joe, Nora, and John. Guys, have we got any questions from the audience, please? You can get some free advice and insights up here from this amazing panel. Do we have any questions from our audience at this time? Come on, guys, you must have. Who's got a brand here? Are there any brands in the audience? So you've got some brands. Okay, so I'm gonna throw, guys, someone take a microphone to one of the, I'm gonna pick on you. If you're not gonna ask questions, I'm gonna pick on you. This is what I do. Who had their hand up there who's got a brand? Hi, what's your name?
I don't have a brand, but I have a question.
Go on.
My name is Max. When it comes to going global, how do you choose the language you go out with? You know, you have locals here that speak both English and Arabic. How do you choose which one to go with in the caption and so on and so forth?
That's a really good question, and here obviously it was a point I brought up earlier. We have like 200 nationalities in the UAE, all speaking so many languages, and most of them speak 2, 3, 4 languages. What's the focus?
Well, first it has to be English, even for locals here. Even they prefer the Arabic, but you need to put the caption. Coming to the caption, it needs to be Arabic. They appreciate it and they love it, but you still need to go English first, because we have like 200 nationalities, at least in Dubai or UAE. And the region, when it comes to our industry, luxury business, everybody speaks English. Even they like to speak Arabic, so that's why we put it out loud in English. We try to make the visual part of it localized, so they're already connected to it. If they want it in Arabic, it's down there in the caption.
I can give you also an example on a client that we have here in the UAE. Because of the diversity and the different people that we have, you know, we target different languages, but the main 2 languages are English and Arabic. But depending on the brief, the product, and who's the target audience. Sometimes we go multiple languages, Filipino, Tagalog, Malayalam, Urdu, and, you know. It all depends on what is the brief. Is that piece of communication or piece of product or any piece that you're bringing out needs to be targeted to a certain segment, and this is where you start adapting or localizing to that language depending on the target. And again, as we've mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but usually the main social platforms for the brands here in the region, they cater Arabic and English. But again, when it comes to campaigns, the targeting happens in different languages.
Nora, any thoughts?
Yeah, just very quickly, if you're launching something from the UAE and going global, definitely you need to consider where you're launching it. We launched for the Taycan Cross Turismo X Johnny FPV, the film that we did, Drive to Extreme, we launched it in over 100 markets. And we discovered that we cannot only rely on English, because for the Chinese markets, you have to speak the language. So it really depends. When I was working on Mall of the Emirates, which is a destination that attracts a lot of tourists, we had to also speak the language of the tourists that are coming here. We had a lot of Russians, so we had Russian communication. We had a lot of Chinese, so we had Chinese communication. Obviously, we have a lot of Saudis, so we needed Arabic communication. And English, which is the most obvious. So I think it really depends on the product and the market and what's the actual nature of the product. If it's a destination that attracts tourists, then you need to understand who are your main tourists and focus on, I would say, maximum 5. What are the 5 most important audiences for you? So you don't waste time doing, 200 languages.
And we had another hand up at the back. Has anyone else got a question? Yeah, over there, guys. Can we get a microphone over there, please? I feel like I need some running music. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Again, it's a very technical question, but it's off of what you had mentioned about don't spread yourself too thin by having a presence on every single platform. Now, my company is Creative Zone. We want to make sure we're reaching everyone. We know that our clients are mostly business owners, entrepreneurs, so we do focus on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, we don't really focus on, say, TikTok and Twitter. Our question is this: of course, we put all of our energy on these 3 main platforms. The other ones are dormant. So if you go to Twitter and you go to look us up, the last post would have been, say, maybe in 2018. Now, I'm personally not a big fan of that. I think that just looks inactive. But if you say that we don't spread ourselves too thin and we don't have a presence over there, what do you recommend? Just not having an account completely, or just having an account that exists but it's just the last post super old, or just don't have any posts? Either way, I see sort of a risk, because if I don't have an account completely, then if someone else takes my username, then I'm screwed later.
Who wants to take that one? I don't mind.
See, I totally disagree with don't spread too thin as a general statement. I think it is, again, back to the right exposure and the right audience, where and the right platform to deliver what you want. So again, if your product is full of social videos, lovely images, Instagram and TikTok is the place where you need to be there. This is exactly, focusing on top of that. What is your objective? Is it more about engagement? So it's multiple factors. I think your question summarizes, a lot of points that we've discussed here. But it's not about spreading yourself too thin. I'm not saying that focus on one platform versus the other is really put the money and put the effort behind what is your objective. Is your audience or your target audience, do they live on that platform? Of course you should. We've been working with clients, prior to even Snap and TikTok come here to the region. We were focusing more on Insta and Facebook, and then when these platforms opened, We didn't ask them to not to have an account and not to engage. First, we did a lot of assessment. What those platforms represent, do they actually mean anything for their target audience? Is there any content that really resonates with them? Is it the right platform for that brand? And then you play, and you plug and play accordingly, and then you need to test. For example, you cannot imagine an account like just an account that we have like KFC is not on TikTok. It's fun brand, you can do a lot of things, or even it's not on Snap. It depends where your customers are, and this is where you need to target, and you need to have that flexibility, not to spread yourself thin, but you need to have that flexibility in terms of where do I need to put my money, and it's a campaign per campaign. It's not an always an ongoing thing. I cannot imagine, for example, a fun and outgoing and brand that is already full of life and social imagery and nice imagery that can live on, let's say, Twitter versus Instagram. Again, I think there's a lot of points that we've discussed collectively here that can summarize also on top of what I've said, your question.
Roger.
Yeah, but today, a nice image that will go viral, trend everywhere, it will reach Twitter on different captions and text and where your company will profit from. So, yeah, you're right, 100%. We focus on one platform, but doesn't mean you don't need to be on the other platform. You don't exist. You can put it in a corporate way. You can put coming in later. We're not active today, but if it goes and reaches the other platform, at least you have your tag and you are there to support it.
Agree. Totally agree to that point. But again, for it to go viral, you need to have, and viral is a big word. You need to have the right audience to push it for you, and you need to have the right exposure on that platform to push it for you. Again, it goes back on what is your objective and what you're offering, and I think it's not as well a one size fits all. It's not like the same product or the same creative that you cut and paste across different. It works, but it's not optimal again.
And very quickly, anything else from the audience? Anyone else want to ask anything quickly? No?
We were too boring.
No, this is good. I just had one tiny question, just off the back of the languages question. The visual medium is a universal language, and I've seen a lot of interesting and creative campaigns and adverts where there is no language, because it's just the visual medium, people doing things, but there's no speech, there's no language. So is that something brands should be looking at?
What's the question?
So I'm just asking, so, because we were talking about, if brands are going global, which language should they translate into? Should it be English, or should it be Arabic, or whatever? But the visual medium is a global language, it's a universal language. So do you actually have to have language within your campaigns? I've seen a lot lately where there's no speech at all. It's just, people doing comedy sketches or anything, but there's no actual speech.
But look at the campaign, Incredible India. It tells everything without the slogan, right? But you needed a nice slogan. And it adds to it, it spices up. So I agree with you, we live in an era of imagery. It's universal language, but also to add to it, doesn't harm. And like the guy said, if you're communicating the same thing in China or in Philippines or in Latin America, just if you have it in the other language, it's really important and good. And from platform to another, if you are on WeChat, definitely you go Chinese, right?
I think it's just much more difficult to say something with just a visual. You can do it maybe once or twice, but you cannot always do it. It's very, very difficult to, basically a visual can say a story, but it's very difficult to redo it again every year. If I want a Ramadan campaign every year, I think it's important that, I'm visually very strong, but I also have a different kind of approach as well. So it is doable, but it's just challenging to do it again.
And that's just me being salacious, it's fine. As always. Joe, just a final thought on that?
Yeah, it's like music. You know, sometimes you have ads with just music and
Sonic
or
branding.
Sonic branding, but or even music with words, or like it's similar to music. It's a universal language. Again, it does not work every time, but when it works, and if it really worked right, like I know like a couple of brands in Egypt that did a full commercial based on cast and engagement and interaction without a single word, and won great awards. Again, the power of the creativity and the delivery and the packaging and everything plays an important role. But having all the time a brand without any visual, so only relies on visual language, that's not an always winning formula. It needs to be selective, and you need to find the right time to do it as well with the right idea. But sometimes, yeah.
Go on, Sean.
I don't know if it's about language or not, but today we see brands are going for Ramadan campaigns with global rights because they want to communicate it in Indonesia, in London, in the US, and everywhere. So I would say the topic itself, like, it's very important, and to define also. If today really brands, I would say in luxury industry, they are choosing to go for global Ramadan campaigns from the region, and they are made in Arabic with dubbing or subtitling and all this.
Fantastic. I mean, this is a whole other topic that we can go on with forever. But for now, Jean, Nora, and Joe, thank you so much. Give our panel a nice round of applause. Thank you so much.